And this is where, as I mentioned, Jerry had some great ideas, and this is something that he first put forward almost 10 years ago now, I think. And it's the idea that we shouldn't be looking at things as if we're engineers. We should be looking at things as if we're farmers. And that sounds kind of weird, right? Farmers. But think about agribusiness. The biggest industry in the world. Billions and billions of dollars. Sorry, kind of sound like Carl Sagan there. All this money. And there's huge uncertainty. When the farmer puts the seeds in the ground, there's a whole bunch of things they cannot know. Is it going to rain? Am I going to have enough water? Is it going to rain at the right time or the wrong time? Are there going to be pests? Is the Russian harvest going to be really good, in which case I won't get as much money for my harvest here? Are people's tastes going to change? Is GMO going to be in or out? All these things, these uncertainties, exist when they decide to invest at the beginning of the cycle, when they plant. And yet, they continue to make billions and billions of dollars. This is a model that says change and uncertainty is part of what we do. We manage it, we accept it, and we're going to get good at it. And that's what this agricultural model, this is why it's a better one than the engineering model for us. We're going to have a weather eye. We know going in, as we get further down the road, change will happen. But we're going to look for that change. We're going to tackle it, we're going to address it up front. And in the severest of cases, we're going to look and say, you know what? There's so much change. What we started out to do isn't worth doing anymore. And just like a farmer who says, this crop's not going to make me any money at the end of the year, I'm going to plow it under rather than continuing to invest in it. Where the engineering model says, no, get the project done on time and on budget, and that's your success. But that's not the success we're after. The success we're after is a harvest. Farmers don't plant to get seeds or to get corn stalks. They plant to get some value from the harvest. That's the objective. Now guess what that harvest is? That harvest is the value that Jerry talked about. People don't invest in technology to get technology. They invest in technology, organizations put money into technology in order to get some result out that is meaningful to the people that fund that organization. And so when you look at the agricultural model, although it's not the first thing that happens, the first thing you need to think about is the harvest. And we, if you ever happen to chance to attend one of our seminars, you'll hear us say, focus on the harvest about 3,000 times. Because that's the answer to everything. If you are all focused on that harvest, you are all going to be aligned. Any discussion can take place and say, well, our goal is this, so how does your concern, your idea, affect that goal that we all agree on? It's not the false alignment of that model that we saw earlier. Now, the agricultural cycle breaks down into a bunch of things. You start by planting. And that's the typical IT project. We're going to go out, we're going to get some network gear. We're going to buy Marvell. We're going to do something that's going to get us some technology. Great. And so many IT projects end there. And people say, oh, we're done. Can you imagine the farmer going, yep, I put the seeds in, I'm off. I don't have to stick around. No, that's just the start. Next, you have to cultivate what's there. And we use the word cultivating to talk about, you've got to make this technology work for your goals and your organization. So you get the Marvell technology, and it does a whole bunch of things. You need it to focus on what you want it to do. Customize it, make it suit your needs. You get network gear, you make sure that network gear is serving your purpose, not just a generic purpose. At the end of that, what have you got? You've got some technology. We're not done yet. Now you've got to apply that technology. You've got to nurture the organization to exploit that technology. So if I can go back to my favorite new example, we used to pick on Obamacare, but now it's Phoenix, that's our favorite example. They did a great job of this. Those guys went in and they built this technology, and the technology's there. And nobody knew how to use it. And nobody was trained on how to use it. And it didn't fit with anything else that they did because they didn't nurture it. They didn't go in and say, here's what we have to do to exploit this technology. They didn't develop the people. They didn't change the processes to use this new technology. Only then, by taking this new technology, applying it to altered business processes, you get a different result. And that different result, that's your harvest. And I want to really emphasize something Jerry said earlier. Harvest is something you must actively do. You don't just assume you're going to get results. You've got to actually go out and measure those results. If you can't measure it, you can't manage it. And you're not done there. You have to renew it. And this is where I think probably ties into some of your roles. We don't invest for one harvest. We expect to get that harvest cycle after cycle after cycle. So it's really, rather than a wheat field, I should use an orchard as an example. So you think of an orchard. I'm going to put in some trees. I invest, I plant the trees, I cultivate, or nurture those trees, cultivate them. Initially, they don't give me a lot of apples. When they're first planted, I get a very small harvest. Over time, I get a much, much bigger harvest, regularly every year. If I take care of them, if I ignore them and I don't maintain them, and I don't worry about the pests that are doing, I will lose that harvest. Just as if we invest in technology, put it in there, and then we don't keep it up to date, and we don't maintain it, and we don't look after it, we don't make sure it integrates with what's around it, it becomes less and less of a harvest. But even if we do a great job of maintaining those trees or that technology as we go forward, at some point, that tree ages to the point where it's producing fewer and fewer apples, and it becomes a point where it's worth more as firewood than it is as a producer of harvest. And that's very much the cycle of technology. You put in this network gear, that's great. For the first little while, it takes a while to get it up and running right, then for a few years it runs fine, and then it becomes out of sync with that's around it, and it needs to be replaced. That constantly renewing of the infrastructure and the pieces is just the same, fits beautifully into that agricultural model. So the agricultural model boils down to this: focusing on the harvest. You have a weather eye, and alignment occurs because of that focus. It is not something you have to focus on yourself. It happens because you're all trying to do the right thing.